Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Ram. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today, I have with us, he's a director. He has a film that I had the pleasure of seeing the screener to, and it's called The Legend of El Chupacabra. I have with us, he's the director, Rob Mabry. Rob, welcome to the Horror Ram.
Yeah, hey Travis, really appreciate you having me on the show and everything that you're doing for the indie horror scene. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for the screener, man. This was a fun movie, man. I definitely enjoyed this. And for my audience, please tell them a little bit about the legend of El Chupacabra.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar with the chupacabra, chupacabra is a cryptid. Uh, Bigfoot is a cryptid. Mothman is a cryptid, right? It's a legendary creature whose existence can neither be proven or unproven. So, Legend of El Chupacabra is about a couple of kids who live in a town called Bluffkin, Texas, in the Texas Hill Country. They've had an encounter with the chupacabra when they were little kids. And then, strangely, every 4 years, killings happen in this town. Pete, who is the main character, bit of a nerd and sort of obsessed with the chupacabra, has been investigating this pattern, and he enlists the aids of some of his friends from his childhood to try to track down the chupacabra and save the town of Bluffkin.
Now, what gave you the inspiration to go with the El Chupacabra?
Yeah, chupacabra is kind of tied to Texas. It's a legend here, sort of across Texas and Mexico. I live in Texas. I live in San Antonio. I have always wanted to make a movie that was set in Texas, and so my goal was kind of have a movie set in Texas with an all Texas cast, an all Texas crew, and make a feature film. So that was the inspiration. It actually started out as a short film, and something that I wrote and never made, but it was always kind of gnawing at me in the back of my mind. I thought there was a good story there, and after making probably close to 20 short films, I decided, I was ready to make a feature film. It was something that has been on my bucket list since I was a little kid. And so I resurrected that short film and started working on it and developing it as a feature.
Now, was there a challenge? I mean, for being a filmmaker who normally makes short films, was it a challenge to try to go the full length feature route?
Yeah, I mean, everything is bigger, right? When you're making a feature film, it's much riskier. If you're making a short film and maybe you're shooting for 2-3 days and you do it on a weekend, right? Like, it's easy to kind of get that done. But when you're, talking about doing a feature, and of course it's an indie feature, and so we were filming on weekends most of the time, over almost a 3-month period, and keeping that all together, right, and making sure that you can actually finish it is very challenging. Probably one of the biggest challenges I've faced in my life. Like, it was no joke.
Now, by filming this film in the San Antonio area, which most people don't realize, I just found out, within a year ago, San Antonio is booming when it comes to indie horror film creators, as well as actors and actresses. So, what was that a little bit easier to have so much talent around you to pull into actors and actresses for your film?
Yeah, for both cast and crew, and it's really been kind of amazing what's happened in San Antonio. I'd say over just the last 5 years, there were almost no feature films being made 5 years ago, but there's been a sort of explosion of filmmakers and feature filmmakers, and particularly in the horror genre. Just an awful lot of films being made here. We're kind of a sister city to Austin, which is also a big film community, but San Antonio is beginning to stand on its own as a real film community. I have worked with the cast and crew for The Legend of El Chupacabra on a number of short films. Not everybody, but a lot of people who are in the movie were people that I worked with on short films. And so I sort of built up the roster of people that I really like to work with through making the short films, and brought them in to work on Chupacabra.
Love it. And one thing, so I'm listen. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but one thing I enjoy about the film was the characters. Like you kind of get you kind of like the characters. You kind of become engaged with them, and that's something that like I see a lot of indie horror filmmakers are missing. Yes, the blood and guts are there, but the story and the character development is not. Now, was that something that you tried to focus on when it came to this film, building the character development and also the personality as the characters?
Well, first, it makes me feel really good to hear you say that, because yes, I did, really try to invest in the characters and tell a good story. Obviously it's very joke heavy, the yes. movie, right? It's for laughs, it's for fans of horror, but it's a comedy and fans of monster movies. But one of the things that I really wanted to make sure was that there was a tight story, right, that the audience could follow and enjoy, and that they were invested in the characters. And there's a lot of sort of archetypes of 80s movies, because I'm a big fan of 80s movies. So
me too.
The hero is just that nerdy hero. He's got a foil, the skeptic, his sidekick Danny. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of a buddy film. And then one of the characters I really enjoyed writing was Roy Dixon, who's the wannabe stepdad of Pete, our hero, who is kind of crass and a boob, but also sort of has a heart of gold. So I think it's important. Like, you can't just have jokes, you can't just have killings and in a horror movie and it be only about that. Like, really successful films give us a story that we care about, and characters that we're invested in, and we want to find out what happens to them, and we care about what's going to happen.
I 100% agree. Now, a question I'm going to ask you, this is, of course, I want your opinion on this. So I see right now, when it comes to a lot of indie horror filmmakers, they want to, get a big name, whether it be Felissa Rose, or I'm just using Felissa Rose because she's the most common one that you see. And they want to attach that individual to the movie because they think that for the audience, that name recognition on the poster, that's going to draw them into it. Now, do you think that's important? I don't. But do you think that's important as a filmmaker to have, as indie horror, to have an actor or actress that's...
Yeah, it's a good question, and I've gotten that advice myself. Just as I started to research and kind of figure out, like, okay, how do I put this movie together? I think probably more important than kind of how the audience might respond to a known actor being in a film, I think it has more to do with the distribution of the film, right? And if you can go to a distributor and say, hey, I've got actor X, in my film, and the distributor looks and can see, like, oh, they're popular in these regions, right, where we want to distribute the film, then you kind of have that built-in audience for the actor. That's not a path that I took. And I do think that, even without a name actor, you do have the potential to break through, right? Like, if you make a quality film that people enjoy, then, sometimes those things can transcend whether you have, a name actor in it or not. But I do think in a way it helps, just in terms of the, path to distributing the film.
I agree, because like, I'm not a filmmaker, but if I was going to make a film right now, I would, for me, my brain would go towards like a John Carpenter or Wes Craven, where you go with no name actors and actresses and hope they become a Jamie Lee Curtis or a Heather Langenkamp, or even a Jennifer Aniston, and then people, and that's going to bring more attention to your movie.
Yeah, I think, beyond whether you have a name actor or not, you need talent in your movie, right? And where I see a lot of indie directors kind of failing to a degree is that they cast their friends in the film, or don't get the highest quality talent that they could get. And there is so much talent out there, so many actors and actresses that are super talented and hungry, for the opportunity to be in a feature film, especially. And so, I just encourage directors out there, like, don't be afraid to get really talented people. I think some people feel like, oh, am I good enough, right, to direct somebody who really has, talent and experience? And I would just say, look at them as an asset, right? Like, their talent is going to help your picture and just make it better. So, the more talented cast you can have, the better off your project is going to be.
I agree, because I mean, for a watcher, the acting is not important, but the acting is. Listen, you can't have it where it seems like somebody's reading a script, And
Yeah.
I've seen so many indie horror movies where it looks like they're reading off a cue card, and listen, you can have the best story ever, the best special effects, practical effects, but like if as soon as one of your actors starts talking and it sounds like, oh my god, as an audience, you completely check out.
Yeah, you've got to, go on the journey with those characters, and so you've got to make sure, that you have the best possible people to help tell your story.
Now, how long did it take you, filming wise, for Chupacabra?
The principal photography, we had planned, I think, 20 shoot days, which we shot over several weekends. And then there was one weekend, one week where we were actually working in a studio in San Marcos, Texas. So the whole third act of the film takes place in this underground lab. And we actually had the luxury of building a set in a warehouse to stand in for this underground laboratory. I don't want to give too much away about the film, but 20 total days. There were some pickups that we had to do, so probably another 3 days of shooting. But we started in September, and in Texas, that's just when the weather is starting to get a little bit mild, right? But we're still out there shooting in pretty hot conditions. And then by the time we got to December, out in the hill country, everybody was freezing. So
Come on. Now, as a filmmaker, once you finish this film and you sat down after the editing and you sat down and watched a finished product, which I had a chance to see, how did that feel? I mean, is it an amazing feel to I mean, because I know that making films is fucking stressful. I've had the chance of being on a set, and I see all the moving pieces and the crazy shit that can pop up at any second.
Yeah.
So once all that's done, the editing, and you get to finally see the product, how does that feel?
Feels pretty good, man. Like when you put 2 years of your life into something, and you pull off something that was on your bucket list, like that you've been dreaming about since you were a kid. It feels really good, and I was proud of what I was able to accomplish, and everybody that I work with, like what we did. I think we made a special film, I mean, it felt terrific. A big relief, but then there's also sort of the knowing, okay, now it's done. Now I need to get it distributed. Now I need to market the film. I need to push the audience to it. And so, your work isn't done once you, lock the film. There's still, as an indie filmmaker, a lot that you've got to get out there to do, and that I'm still doing. And that's why, like, I'm here now, right, to promote the film and hopefully, get some more eyeballs on it. So, yeah.
So what's the next step? Are you going to do a screening or are you going to put this directly to?
Well, I've actually, we had a premiere. So back in October of last year, when the film was completed, we had our red carpet premiere. It actually ran for a week in an independent theater. So, we had a very small theatrical run. And, from there, moved it to DVD and Blu-ray. So back in May, it became available on DVD and Blu-ray. And then it's available now on Tubi, which is exciting. If you can stomach a couple of ads, you can watch the movie for free on Tubi. Lots of great content on that platform. And it's also available to rent and to buy on Amazon. So, just over the last couple of weeks, it's gotten out to the streaming platforms. And so it's exciting, for people to be able to go and watch it.
Love it. Now, one thing about Tubi that I'm curious that they have not done, or I don't know if any filmmakers if there's something that they even thought about or be interested in. But would you like, almost like how some streaming channels, they have like ratings, would you want a rating option on a streaming service like Tubi?
Yeah. I mean, I think they've got a like or dislike, which is probably more about your own personal preferences and trying to tailor what it shows to you, personalized. I would love to have the ratings. I feel confident that we made a good movie, and the ratings, at least this point, seem to bear that out. So I think it's helpful, for the audience to kind of get a feel for that. I'm a big Rotten Tomatoes guy. I look forward to the point at which our movie has a Rotten Tomatoes score. I hope it's fresh. We'll see, but yeah, I think ratings and reviews are good, right? They're a tool for the audience to understand what they're getting themselves into.
Exactly, because I mean, one of the things I did with my channel, I started the Tubi Tuesday, and that's where I just randomly go through. There's so many horror movies and indie horror movies on Tubi, on all streaming channels.
Yeah,
and unless someone refers it to you, you don't get the Rotten Tomatoes reviews most of the time, and like it just get lost in a shuffle. So like, I just randomly go through it and I pick one and I'll just do a quick review, because there's some great fucking gems on Tubi, some great indie horror movies, and I think that they should get the recognition. So, but I always thought that maybe if I went on to Tubi, like me personally, and I saw, okay, this one has 500 thumbs up or something like that, that might make an audience want to watch it.
Yeah, agreed. And it is amazing how much talent there is out there, and how many great films there are on Tubi. It's sometimes hit or miss, right? But there are things that were not on my radar at all, and you just sort of discover them as you're doom scrolling through Tubi, and then you're like, wow, shit, this is really a good movie, So I think that's one of the challenges right now for an indie filmmaker too, right? Is there are so many indie filmmakers, and just a ton of content out there, and so it's challenging to break through that, right? And it's hard for your audience to discover it, and so it'll be interesting how things evolve here over the next couple of years in terms of indie films. So I'm interested to see where it is, but right now, for me, it's hopefully making some money off the Legend of El Chupacabra, and maybe being able to fund the next project that I've got.
Love it. Now, hopefully it's not a spoiler, but will we see a sequel to El Chupacabra?
It's possible. Not a direct, or well, I'll say I don't have any plans for a direct sequel to The Legend of El Chupacabra, but one of the stories that I'm developing, or projects that I'm developing, is an alien invasion story that's set in the same town that Chupacabra takes place. So Chupacabra happens in Bluffkin, Texas, right? This little fictional Texas Hill Country town. And so I view that as sort of my Derry. Stephen King has the town of Derry, and he sets a lot of his stories, in that town. And so I want to do a similar thing and do an alien invasion story, bring back most of the cast from Chupacabra. So kind of use the same cast, playing different characters in a story that's set in the same fictional town as Chupacabra, if that makes any sense at all.
100%. Now, how do you keep pumping out ideas? Because I would think to myself, like, if I finish Chupacabra, I would take at least a year or two off. Oh, fuck, and just see how that did, out there in the market.
Yeah. I've always been a storyteller, like since I was a kid, making little comic books, and if I had a creative writing assignment, like that was something that I was always jazzed about when I was a kid. So I think storytelling is kind of something that for me comes pretty naturally. And it is almost always geared towards making people laugh. Like, I was the class, comedian when I was a kid. It was always important for me to make people laugh. I think that was a way to get through with my dad. If I could entertain him, I was on his good side. So I think that has a big, part or contributes, to why I like to tell stories and like to make people laugh. So I do think it's, comes a bit naturally, but, it's also like takes discipline to write. And you've got to, try to be in front of a computer every day and, try to get some pages in and just, keep up with it and stay disciplined. And I try not to be overly critical of the work that I'm doing when it's in progress. Like originally when I was a writer, when I was younger, I was constantly like rewriting as I was writing and, kind of critiquing what I'd already written. And that would just slow me down and demoralize me. And I wouldn't finish a lot of things. And as I, got older and more experienced as a writer, I just realized like, I'm going to write the biggest piece of crap that I can write, but I'm going to finish it, and then if I finish it, I can go back and rewrite it, So even if I know like, I'm writing a scene and it's crap and it's not working, I'm just going to accept it and get to the next scene. And, then once you're done, you can go back and rewrite it as many times as you want.
All right. So I have a 2-part question to ask. Right now, there's an influx of indie creators coming in, streaming services to be. Within the next 5 years, what's one thing that you are excited about, and what's one thing you're nervous about?
That's a good question. I'm excited about the capability of AI and what I think it's going to mean for indie filmmakers, especially when it comes to visual effects and what, a sort of one-man band might be able to do with the use of AI in the visual effects arena. I did a lot of the visual effects in The Legend of El Chupacabra. It has a surprising number of VFX for an indie film. And, it's a lot of mundane stuff, but, even when you've got to like replace a phone screen or a computer screen, like there's a lot of work that happens, to make those visual effects convincing. And so I did a lot of that stuff myself. I think AI is going to make things easier. And, when I have the ambition of doing a sci-fi film or an alien invasion film, I think AI is going to help me, to achieve that. Right. So I think that's something to be excited about. A lot of people are worried, will AI replace us, and that's a legitimate concern, actors, especially like will their likeness be taken, and just be an AI actor? Sure, that's something to be concerned about. I don't think that AI is going to be writing every Hollywood, blockbuster anytime soon. I just think that people yearn for stories, told by people. And so I'm less concerned about that than other people are. But, AI is definitely a double-edged sword. The thing that maybe I'm concerned about is movie theaters themselves. And how they will survive. I think film studios really have kind of screwed themselves with being in and out between theater releases and streaming releases, and they've pushed major films onto streaming platform only, or they do a theater release, but they're not really committed to that because they know that it's going to go on to streaming. There is no better experience to me than sitting in a theater and watching a movie with an audience and experiencing it together. That sort of communal experience of watching a film is something, from when I was a little kid. Like, I had that experience. I don't want it to go away. I think it's really important, that we have the chance to go and see movies in the theater the way that they were intended to be seen. So I'm just worried that, the sort of love of cinema and going to the theater is starting to fade away for a lot of people.
I agree. I'm a huge theater person as well. And I have to admit something. It's hard for me to watch a movie at home on TV. It's hard. I watch, if it wasn't for my channel, I would be watching a lot less movies, because, especially on TV, because there's so many fucking distractions. You got the family shit going on, you got the fucking phone going off. There's just so many distractions. I like that theater feel. I've always been a theater person. I like that theater feel. I like sitting there. You cut your damn phone off. No one can talk to you, and you just immerse yourself into the story that's on the screen.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. The Legend of El Chupacabra, there are two versions of the film. There's the theatrical version and the streamer version. So the theatrical version starts out with a title credit sequence, and it's about 2 minutes long, and it's really cool. It kind of takes the audience through the underground laboratory right before it even starts to play into the story, because that doesn't really happen until the third act. But it's really just this neat, kind of 80s inspired title sequence, but it's 2 minutes long. And so it's not in the streaming version, because I recognize, and I got some advice, that the audience needs to be in the movie immediately.
Yeah.
If you have a 2 minute long title sequence, no matter how cool it is, they're probably going to turn it off, right? Because they just want to get to it,
Yep.
and they don't have any patience, for something like that. But if you're in a theater, right, you're there for the complete experience of the movie, and you'll sit through a 2 minute title sequence, because that's just all part of the experience. So anyway, yeah, it's definitely an interesting difference between how we consume movies, in a theater versus how we watch them at home.
I agree. I mean, if I had my choice between, listen, I know, streaming is great for a lot of filmmakers, but if I had my choice between theater and streaming, theater all the way. I mean, that's where I first experienced movies, really, and that's when I fell in love with movies. And I love, it's one of my favorite things to do is going to see a movie in a theater. I've watched movies in a movie theater that was absolutely great, and then came home and watched it, and I was like, why do I like this movie? And it's because everything is better in a theater.
Yeah, you have
everything
that experience.
is better.
I saw Maxine yesterday in a theater, and good movie. Really enjoyed it, but enjoyed it because I was in the movie theater.
Yes, I seen X and Pearl both in the theater during COVID. I saw both of them, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Maxine in the theater as well. And I'm glad there's some good horror movies coming out this year in the theaters as well. So I mean, which I'm nervous, man. I'm definitely scared about it. So hopefully, yeah, that's a concern for me as well. That the theaters possibly will be going away in the next.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't bet against them completely. I think they will survive in some form. But it just in terms of the movies that will be in those theaters and how many theaters there will be to go to, like I think there's a legitimate reason for concern there for sure.
And Rob, where can everyone find you, my friend?
You can find the film on at the Chupacabra movie on both Facebook and Instagram. I am Bright Eye Film on Twitter and Instagram. But I'd head towards the Chupacabra movie either on Facebook or Instagram. That's where I tend to post the most content, and you can keep up with the film there. And if you want to see it, go to Tubi and deal with a couple of ads, but get to see the movie for free. Or if you're not into that, you can rent it or buy it on Amazon.
Amazing. Rob, thank you for coming on, and thank you for seeing that screener too. Great movie. I'm looking forward to seeing your future projects as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad that you enjoyed the movie, and we'll see what comes next.
Most definitely. Everybody, get over to Tubi, get over to Amazon, and then watch.
Go crazy.
Chupacabra. Yes,
yeah,
go crazy.
And don't be afraid to rate it and review it. IMDb, Amazon, like that stuff really helps a filmmaker when you've got reviews. Like it tells the algorithm people are watching this, and hopefully that means more people will watch it.
It is so important. Yes, it is so important. I mean, it's so important in general too for small businesses, for small filmmakers, small movie to definitely leave reviews, rate. And it definitely helps promote them.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that's Rob Mabry. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.